Hello, Facebook. How are you all this morning? I'm here with Love Yoga to Go. My name is Christy. I have a breath and devotional prepared for you today. And I'm on my front porch this morning. And I hope my connection is good because I just thought I'm on a tablet. And yeah, it doesn't, it connects into the Wi-Fi from my house. So hopefully the connection will be good and it'll be great. Otherwise, I may try it again later. So anyway, here I am. Again, welcome to Love Yoga to Go, Breath and Devotional. So I invite you, and you might see a hummer fly by because I've got a hummingbird feeder over here, and I've had 3 of them just swirl around. And anyway, God's creation is so beautiful. I don't know what you can hear of my surroundings, but I'm hearing the birds, I'm hearing some crickets, just the outdoor noises. Just resting and knowing that God created every single one of these creatures, and He created us for His good, for our good, and for His glory. So if you haven't already, come into your place of stillness, lowering your gaze, closing your eyes, just rooting down through the sitting bones, rising up nice and tall, elongating the back, hands in lap or hands at heart center, one on top of the other or in prayer. This is your time, so make it yours. Tuning into your breath, leaving what was behind, leaving what is to come for the future, and just being present right here and right now. I have a very interesting and not much talked about passage to bring you today, and I have the church that I visited on Sunday to thank for that, and I don't know the pastor's name, so I can't give him credit. It was actually kind of nice to be in the dark on who the pastor was until he got up. But anyway, it's a little church just down the road from me, and it was lovely, and the time of worship was great. The sermon was great. So anyway, the little event, the story that I would like to talk to you about. You're fine, honey. I'm live. It's outside. I know. My big girl just coming out. Okay, so I am in the book of Genesis in chapter 26, and this event, this account, this story is about Isaac. And you know, we really don't know overall a whole lot about Isaac. We know that he was the son of Abraham, that he was the child of promise. We know that he went with his father to sacrifice, and there was no sacrifice. Isaac was the sacrifice until God provided the ram. And we talked about that in one of the This World's back earlier in the series. So, but this event, this story, is about wells. And it's about Isaac and Rebekah in a foreign land. And I thought it was a great story to share, and the pastor did a great job, so I'm going to borrow some of his stuff, and I will post the link to the church in the comments when I'm done. So anyway, so here is the gist of this. God gave a promise to Isaac. There was a famine, and there had been a famine in the days of Abraham, his father. Very similar. Isaac went to Gerar to Abimelech, king of the Philistines, and the Lord appeared to him and said, "Do not go down to the land of Egypt. Dwell in the land of which I shall tell you. Sojourn in this land, and I will be with you, and I will bless you. For to you and to your offspring I will give all these lands, and I will establish an oath, the oath that I swore to Abraham your father. And I will multiply your offspring as the stars of heaven, and I will give to your offspring all these lands. And in your offspring all the nations of the earth shall be blessed, because Abraham obeyed my voice and kept my charge, my commandments, my statutes, and my laws." So Isaac settled in the land of Gerar. This is a city. It is not in Egypt. It is in Israel. And the men asked about who his wife was. And he followed in his father's footsteps and said, "Oh, she's my sister." Because he was afraid that Rebekah would be misused if he admitted that she was his wife, the same way as Abraham had done. So anyway, that's really not what we're talking about, but I do want to go down. I did want to just bring that back into your mind. So Isaac was in this land, and he sowed in the land, and he reaped in the land, and the Lord blessed him, and he became rich, and he became very wealthy, and he had possessions of flocks and herds, and many servants, so that the Philistines, this was the land that they lived in, was the land of the Philistines, Gerar, envied him. Now, Abraham had dug wells in the same area when he had lived there, but the Philistines had filled those wells in, so they were dirt filled. And Abimelech had said to Isaac, "Go away from us, for you are much mightier than we." So Isaac departed and encamped in the valley of Gerar and settled there. And Isaac dug again the wells of water. So Isaac dug wells, became very wealthy, and then Abimelech said, "You're too wealthy for us. Move on." So then he moved to the valley and settled and dug wells, and they found the water. And then the herdsmen of Gerar quarreled with Isaac's herdsmen and said, "This water is ours." So Isaac moved again. And this time, they dug the well, and they quarreled over it. And then he moved again and dug another well, and they didn't quarrel over it. So the third time, he said, "The Lord has made room for us, and we shall be fruitful in this land." From there he went up to Beersheba, and the Lord appeared to him and said, "I am the God of your father Abraham. Fear not, for I am with you, and will bless you and multiply for my servant Abraham's sake." So he built an altar there, and he called upon the name of the Lord, and he pitched his tent there. And there Isaac's servants dug a well. So Abimelech noticed this blessing and made a pact and made an agreement, a peace offering, if you will, and a covenant that that Isaac would not harm Abimelech or his people. And they had a feast, and they ate and drank, and blah, 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 blah. So, that's really not where I want to go with this. What I really want to go with this is this little short passage, and I want to focus on what Isaac did. In verse 6, it tells us that Isaac settled in Gerar. Settled. He put down roots. He planted down. He built a house. I don't know. But he settled. He rooted down. Then, the next time, he settled. He rooted down. And then, when he moved to Beersheba, he pitched his tent. He sojourned. Do you remember back in the verse that I first read? God, the Lord appeared to him and said, sojourn in this land. Sojourn, not settle. And, you know, in the root verse for this world series, when I came up with it, in Peter, you know, we are to be sojourners and aliens in this land, wherever we are. And at that time, you know, God knew what was coming. He knew this time would happen. He knew that we would be Americans, if you are, or wherever you are, that you would be where you are and who you are. And he told us to be foreigners. There goes the UPS truck. The foreigners and aliens. He told us not to root down, because this isn't our home. We have a home eternal, forever and ever. This world is not our home. We're only passing through this land. Now, we have, especially as Americans, you know, we have built houses, we have planted firmly, we have rooted down. But it's our heart. Is our heart rooted down? Is our heart settled in this world? Are we settled and rooted? That's what I'm going to ask you today. If you're settled and rooted down. If something came up tomorrow and God said go, would you be ready? Would you be ready? So, when I was in the inner city, one of the things that was spoken of was, you know, when we'd say, oftentimes, you know, as a young kid, as a young punk, we'd say, hey, where do you live? You know, and the answer would never be, I live here. The answer would always be, I stay. This is where I stay. And as I was thinking about this since Sunday and preparing for this, I thought about that. And I thought, you know, that's really interesting, because I was in the inner city in the early to mid 90s, early 90s. And the fact that they said, I stay, I think is pretty significant. They never rooted down. They didn't know how long they were going to be wherever they were staying. They never lived in that place. They stayed. They sojourned. And so today I wonder if maybe we can learn from that. Again, I'm not bashing, you know, I live in I'm a middle class American pretty much, you know. We've drive old cars, but, we like our cars. We have decent furniture. We live like many of you live. And we like it. But I have to ask myself, if God asked me to go somewhere else, if God said, hey, take up your roots and leave, would I be willing to do that? And I think that's important. And maybe we can learn from that. And again, Isaac sojourned. The people, when they left slavery, they sojourned. They built tents. They had no home. They wandered in the wilderness for 40 years. Jesus, fully God and fully man, he sojourned. He had no place to lay his head. He sojourned in his years in ministry. So Isaac went back and redug the wells. And in a way, we also need to redig those wells for those future generations. We need to plant seeds about Jesus to those around us, to our friends, to our family, maybe to strangers. And dig those wells so we can offer the living water that Jesus Christ offers to all who believe. But first, we have to learn to sojourn. We have to realize that this world is not our home. And we don't settle. Maybe physically we settle, but spiritually we don't settle. We don't settle on this earth, no matter where you are, what continent you're in, what country you're in, what city, what town, what suburb, what rural area, wherever you are. That is not our home. That is not our land. Our home and our land is heaven in eternity. So, I'd encourage you to be sojourners. Change your perspective. We don't put down roots. We live as if we live in a tent. And I thought about the Christians when they first came together, and they were breaking bread and sharing their possessions and giving away their things. And that's the mindset of the Christian. That's the mindset that we need to have. Not settling, not ownership. Because everything that we have belongs to God. It's all His. Every single thing. We don't live in this life. We stay. We stay. This is where I lay my head every night, while my body has breath, and while my blood runs through my veins, and while my heart beats. This is where I stay. But my eternal home, that's where we live. And that's where we can take comfort and rest, no matter what the enemy hits you with today. We are only sojourners in this land. But we're going to settle in heaven one day. We're going to put our roots down in heaven for eternity one day. Lord Jesus, help us to be sojourners. Help us not to love this world so much that we forget about our future home in glory with you. Help us to be wise as we show people your love and your grace and your mercy. Thank you. Thank you for Jesus. Thank you that he is the perfect sacrifice for all of eternity. That while we are here on this earth, we proclaim your name. We show people your love, and we teach people about you. And Lord, may we know that the only good in us comes from you. May we be humble servants of the King, of King Jesus. In his name, amen. All right, I don't know how well the light is. I'm having trouble seeing my screen. Hopefully it'll show up better. All right, for this month, I will be here on Tuesdays at 10 and on Fridays at 1 with This World. I will be doing some pop-up yoga classes, movement classes. So just keep an eye on my page and I'll mention it while I'm here. If you're local, I'm doing a special Rest and Restore practice next Saturday, a week from Saturday, in Holden at Get Fit. And I'd love to have you join me live. Other than that, that's where I am. So thanks for being here. Eyes on Jesus, people. Eyes on Jesus. That's the only way we're going to survive any day, any time. Eyes on Jesus. Remembering that this world is not our home, that we're sojourners in a foreign land. Have a great Tuesday.